Hey everybody, I think I finally figured out how to do live on Instagram and not just put my phone on live. So let me see. I'm going to try both ways. So hopefully we are streaming like Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And I would love for everybody to subscribe to my YouTube channel because I'll be doing extra shows and more footage on that. Well, I'm still waiting for both my guests, Dr. Joe Stein and Butch Ware. Believe me, I know about campaigns, and especially if you're doing interviews all day, things, might not always start right on time. But I'm on, and I wanted, because I did a live earlier about these comments that AOC had done, which were really terrible and so not real, and also use like language that was, I mean, when I saw to that, I was heated earlier and I did an Instagram live, but I discarded it before I could post it. And it was maybe out because I was coming in hot after what I saw that she said, so I want to talk about that, which I'm going to talk about in the interview, but I'm going to give them a couple minutes to go on and encourage everybody to come on. I encourage everybody to go to thegreenparty.com and really look at our platform. I'm sorry, gp.org, and look at our platform, right? Because I always encourage people of any party to always read the platforms of the parties. And they're a lot, and it takes a lot of time to read them, understand them. But all parties, whether they're third parties or smaller parties, the major parties all have a platform. And I think it's important for people to recognize too that the Green Party created the Green New Deal, not AOC or Bernie Sanders, that the Green Party was for canceling student loan debt now for almost 20 years, and stands for so many of the things that pretty much people say they want. But when given the opportunity, fear sets in, and that's what's been happening. There's a lot of fear mongering around, telling third parties, like, or telling people if you vote for a third party, that's a vote for Trump. And that's not how elections work. And it's ridiculous and so untrue. But when you're always doing this kind of equation of the lesser two evils, I always say, well, evil is evil. I don't care if it's less or more. That's like when people say we can make prisons better. No, you cannot. Like, prison isn't better no matter how it looks or all of that. It's just not. And a lot of people I've been talking to and just every day are expressing to me like, but no, like, if I vote for a Green Party, that's a vote for Trump. And I try to break it down. And also, what people really don't truly understand is that third parties, but particularly the Green Party, is often sued by the Democratic Party to keep Green Party candidates off the ballot. And then it's a crazy inverse in that, because then it'll be like the Republican Party giving money to some, candidates in the Green Party because it might serve them. But that's what's happening. And no one in a democracy should have to vote out of fear. And oh, hey, Jill's widow says do it. All right now. All right. Let's add Jill, and here we go.
All right.
How are you?
Holding up. How are you? How's anybody,
I was just telling everybody she'll be here. Campaigns, you like, You tell your people, wrap it up, next one. So first and foremost, thank you. And I hope Butch will be able to share, but thank you
So
so
here's yeah, here's the deal. We just heard from Butch that he's got a childcare
oh
emergency, so he
yeah.
won't make it tonight. And we have the option, we could reschedule the whole thing or,
No,
and
we're
have us
here
go home
now. No, let's keep going and we'll get Butch.
to it.
And I think at the end of October, you might be making a trip somewhere down south. Don't tell anybody yet. I think we know. And I'll be there for that. So,
Oh,
okay.
cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So, first, Dr. Jill Stein, how are you doing?
I'm having a lot of fun, actually. The Democrats are really on the attack, and they're running scared, and, it's really great. And I say, keep throwing us into the briar patch because it really backfires every time they send out another attack dog to try to, smear us because they're running scared. They're losing it, in swing states right now because they don't wanna give up their genocide. If they would give up their genocide, they would get a lot of votes back, and they could, they wouldn't lose it, in swing states where the Muslim American and the Arab American vote is not happy with them at all and doesn't wanna support genocide. So, a lot of those votes are coming to our campaign right now, and so the Democrats are really in a panic, and, hey, it's their choice. That's the price you pay for a genocide, you're gonna lose the swing states, so
Yeah,
that's
and
what's
I
going
was telling everybody, before the way it's a lot of fear mongering, and like in any democracy, you should not be voting out of fear of the lesser two evils. And I think why the campaign is also surging is because also young people in general are just done with the duopoly. They're like, it's over. Like every time we trust something or someone or some party. But I wanted just to like peel a couple things first. So, Green Party platform, we have four pillars: democracy, social justice, ecology, and peace. I was telling folks that it's the Green Party that created the Green Deal. You in the first run really pushed it forward, and then AOC and Bernie stole it. So that Green New Deal was the party first, and you.
and they
And
neutered it. They neutered it too. They really took the teeth out of it.
yeah, and then we have our values. If you look on the platform, of course, as a Puerto Rican, I'm always going to vote for a party, the only party that supports independence for Puerto Rico. But I did want to start with this. I was doing an Instagram live and thinking about when I ran in 2008, and I think I don't think me and Cynthia were treated well, not just by some members, some people in the Green Party, but just at all, like from our own comrades and friends that were like, this, you're destroying your life, you're never going to work again, nobody's going to take you seriously. And for 3 years nobody did. And it's interesting because both me and Cynthia then went to get our PhDs. I'm almost finished, but we went at the same time, so I had many years to process it. And I hope that we can now get to a better place in the party around true racial justice and equity for candidates, of color, but also letting people know that we have certain elected officials, but we have to run a federal campaign. If we don't run, we don't can't get ballot access. So I think if you could kind of break that down, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
sure, and thanks for making that point because we're forever being, smeared and mischaracterized as just running, for president and vice president. Every 4 years we come out of the closet and we go for the gold. But number one, we're always at the grassroots. That's where we mostly put our time and our energy. We've elected over 1,500 local candidates, school committees, boards of selectmen, planning boards, et cetera. 1,500 local officials over the last 2 decades or so. We have about 150 people in lower office right now. So it's not like we go away, it's just that the media goes away. They don't cover what we do, they don't cover the social movements that we're working in. They create this illusion that we just come out to run for president and vice president. And the reason we have to do that is because the rules that they write these rules that say we have to do that if we're going to have a ballot line to run on for state representative or, or any partisan race. We can't run it unless we're also running at the presidential level. In some states, it's the governor level, but we're forced into running high races as opposed to just building from the bottom up. And as Greens, we're like a decentralized we have a decentralized value system. We believe in grassroots democracy. We believe in building from the bottom up. So that's probably the way we'd be doing. But it's their rules that require us to do that. In order to keep our ballot status, we have to keep running at the top. Now, it just so happens that, the Democrats have so retreated from any kind of peace and justice and democracy, and racial justice program that they ever had, that if we weren't in the race, there would be no real pro-labor agenda. There would be no anti-war agenda. There would be no climate emergency agenda. And the genocide would be not discussed and not debated. So, it turns out to be actually kind of useful that we're doing this. And so many of the things that the progressive Democrats now run on, everything from a Green New Deal, which they really neutered in the process, to Medicare for All, launched by Ralph Nader, reparations, free public higher education, abolishing student debt, all of these things were the Greens that pushed the envelope and introduce these as, as really critical pieces of a progressive people's agenda. So that's been coming from us too. And we've succeeded in that sense that we've completely transformed the agenda of progressives in this country. It has all come from us. So even while we haven't been winning races at the national level, we've been really, pushing forward really critical, concepts and plans that otherwise wouldn't be here at all.
I mean, look, right now we know that you are pulling ahead of Harris in Michigan and Arizona. I mean, when I was at this incredible conference in Chicago through the portal, and Cory Bush was there. Rashida Tlaib sent messages. It was hundreds and hundreds of people, like some of the best organizer movement folks in this country and internationally. So I'm listening to it and I'm like, did I hear that right? And I was like, that can't be. And not that your campaign can't. The idea that there's a campaign that's going to cost $1 billion and then us as Greens, like I just made okay, maybe 5 million, speaks to the whole thing right now. Like I was listening to some journalists and you could see in their face, they're like, yeah, so Jill Stein is polling ahead. I'm like, it's not a secret now, but and that's, I mean, when you've been out there, right? Like I definitely want to talk to you about all your support in the Muslim community. But when you heard that, what was your like, oh damn?
Yeah. It was kind of like, pinch me, am I dreaming? Is this really happening? I have to say that since our first, invitation to come and talk at a mosque, which was, no, it wasn't a mosque. It wasn't. It was a community center, actually, where the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition, or it might be association, I don't remember, but one of Muslims are really well organized and do very they do a lot of work, a lot of community work and a lot of outreach, and we've been talking to a gazillion different Muslim groups, and this was the very first one. And in fact, they had invited Dr. West out and us because suddenly they were trying to figure out which campaign were they going to support, and they didn't actually get clear on that until like the last month or so when these polls started coming out. But for a long time, they didn't really take a stand. But way back in February, which is when this process began, it was like this almost frantic courtship because the Muslim community realized where the Democrats and Republicans were at, and that it was going to be basically, third party or nothing for confronting genocide. So since those conversations began, it was like, oh my God, we so see eye to eye on genocide, on empire, on endless war, on, just that you can't look away. Some people in this country look away from genocide, and it's like not happening and it's not a thing. But for most of us, certainly Greens, uh, a lot who are into our political culture, it's like there's no way you can pretend this isn't happening. You can't go on with life like it's regular. People are being slaughtered right now. Children are being, torn to pieces right now. And we just had such an intense connection from the start. It was really, really wonderful. And in a way, it just seemed like a matter of time because there were other candidates. And I should mention Claudia de la Cruz and Karina as well as really eloquent voices that are out there. But what was different among our campaigns is that we've been fighting this battle for a while, and we know how to fight the battle to get on the ballot, and we know how to fight a whole lot of battles about organizing. It's really hard to learn it overnight. PSL, to their credit, they've been around for a while. They're great organizers, but mostly what they do is organize street action. They haven't been organizing in the electoral arena. They don't quite have all the chops down for doing that to really challenge empire. And, Dr. West, more power to him. But you can't do this solo. You really need a culture that has been fighting the empire for quite a while. And so Greens have been doing that. And you've been doing that for a long time. We learn how to do this from each other, working on each other's campaigns. So we have a real culture of fight back, and we know a lot of the skills. You can't invent that and you can't learn it overnight. And so I think eventually the Muslim community just saw that we really knew what we were talking about, and we knew how to, how to fight the fight and to use social media and the press and to really push the envelope up against the empire. So eventually things kind of clarified and we started getting a whole lot of support, but it took quite a while. And I have to say, from the very first, it was kind of like, oh my God, this is a family that we're all kind of struggling with this genocide right now. And so grateful to have each other in partnership to build this up, to not only stop genocide, but to stop empire, and to dismantle it and to move from a policy of endless war and economic and military domination, which is sort of like the foreign policy of the US, to a foreign policy based on international law, human rights, and diplomacy. We need to move there. So this is not only about stopping the genocide, it's about really completely reworking US foreign policy. And we just saw so much eye to eye because Greens, have been watching this. We've been watching colonialism, your struggle in Puerto Rico, so many colonial struggles we have been watching and living. And the Arab American community has also been living them, and have had to flee just incredible catastrophe after catastrophe. And so there was just such a meeting of our minds and our hearts around this fight. It just felt like, wow, this is really going to change the struggle. There's a whole group of people who have really been beat up by colonialism, by the empire, and by their migration and all that. They've really taken it on the chin. And then they sort of were trusting partners, first with the Republican Party and then with the Democratic Party, and got abused by each of them. I think they went with the dominant power. Many of them came during the era of George Bush, and so they thought, this is how you play the game. You go in the party that's dominant, because that's where you're gonna.
I also think that people, we've seen the conflict as long as we've been born or become politicized. It's never been consistently this long. So I think there were people who were like, oh, this is only a couple of days. Not that it should ever even be 2 days, 1 hour, nothing. But and then when the reports start coming out, the carnage, the maiming, I was reading something in an environmental paper that said it will take 15 years alone to clean up the rubble. In fact, today, now the Israeli army is going in with heavy tanks, flattening everything. So I think there was an assumption that people would be like, this has happened before, but it hasn't happened at this stage. And that's the thing, like we're beyond, genocide, annihilation, extinction,
Yeah.
And now what's going on in Lebanon, and it is this consistent war machine. Honestly, I thought too, maybe a little bit, I'm not an idealist in that way, but I did think, okay, Harris she's at least going to say ceasefire. No. Okay, she's not going to say that, but she's not going to tell, let's not send another 20 billion. Well, they just sent another 20 billion. So when you're out there, obviously the Muslim community is like 100, and it's the first time, maybe in modern time, that they're like, oh wait, we're blocked too.
Yeah.
And when those young people said uncommitted, uncommitted movement aren't supporting either candidate nor third party. In fact, the Teamsters, for the first time in how many decades, are like, we're not supporting either major party. So you're out there. Are you getting a feeling of not just Muslim people, but like young people or whatever, like we're so tired, this has to stop. And how are we going to stop this? Are you getting that feeling from other folks?
Definitely. And I don't know, did you see the interview on The Breakfast Club?
Oh, no. Not only are we going to talk about that one after this, we're going to talk about what AOC said.
Yeah.
Hold on, fam.
And so the point there is just that the Black community is also really up in arms right now too.
Yeah.
And
well, you know what, Doc? Let me just say so people know. So anyway, I never watched The Breakfast Club, but I saw, and I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And it's not that you even started talking. It's just Angela Rye. You could immediately see, like, and I was looking at her, and then I'm looking at you, and I'm looking at the guys who are like, and this stare to you, who then went in. You've never won anything. You guys don't win. You're white. You're from Massachusetts. But just the visceral nature of it was just disgusting. She went through her litany, and then you were like, oh, okay. And the minute you started talking, she was trying to shut you down, continuing to. And I think they showed themselves for the new, as Bruce Dixon and Glenn Ford made them, always rest in peace, labeled them the Black misleadership class, because all of you people, except for you and Butch up in this room, are millionaires. So you don't know what people are going through on a daily basis. And you can't comprehend the fact that we, as Black and brown folks, are also not stupid. So you're sitting there. You were good. I was like, I might have walked out. I would have been like, you know what, F this. But you didn't. So the responses afterwards, people were like, oh, okay, this is what they're about. I'm like, yes, please. I feel like you felt good because you've been in those situations before with just the nastiness of it.
Oh, yeah. We get a lot of nastiness. And when the polls started coming out, showing that the Muslim community now supported us, our campaign, in several swing states so that the Democrats were gonna lose it. They, like, went on this track of, "We've gotta destroy her. We have to savage her reputation. We've got to really smear her and make the Muslims pull back." And I think that's what they started doing it. You know, who came after us first was Jamie Harrison, the head of the DNC, started
Oh, right,
smearing me
yes.
as a Russian asset, you know, in,
Yeah.
like, this pathetic, stupid way that's just, like, been there, done that, and investigated for 3 years by the Senate Intelligence Committee, who came up with nothing,
Yeah,
nothing.
Sam, what Dr. Stein's talking about is how they've try to link her to be either some operative that when she wasn't running, she went to Russia and she got like trained. I mean, the shit is a conspiracy theory,
It's
but
ridiculous.
it was also mainstream national corporate media that was pushing those lies too, that
Yeah.
started the investigation against you.
Exactly. They instigated the investigation hoping that that would criminalize me and, you know, send me off to jail. And they looked for 3 years and they couldn't find a thing that was, you know, out of bounds or in any way inappropriate. And, you know, I got basically a full clean bill of health, and that smear basically is over and done with, but they don't wanna give it up because they don't have anything else to go for. So, that's when they started coming after us again and using this old smear, which kind of it's like all they have. Um, you know, and they're still trying to do, permutations of that Russia smear, and Mehdi Hasan, you know, tried going for the jugular on that one, but that's all they've got, and so it doesn't even bother me anymore because it's so pathetic and ridiculous and really just a sign of how scared that they are. So that's totally fine. But it really began in earnest, and it kind of became almost funny to watch because it's like they're twisting in the wind right now. They are really running scared and they don't know how to stop us. They could stop this if they just gave up their genocide, but they won't give up their genocide. So it's like it's pathetic. They've brought it on themselves and let them stew in their juices on this, and that's what's happening. And after Jamie Harrison, then it was AOC, which was hysterical. I don't know if you saw
Well,
her
no, look,
Instagram
I
lying down. It was just
I had
so
I had seen her
officious
and
and
you know,
aristocratic. It was really disgusting. Go ahead.
yeah, no, no. So I had seen it, you know. I would say I've had a cordial one off here or there conversation with her.
Hmm.
But when I saw it in full, I didn't catch because I was watching you guys you both on Democracy Now today with Amy and Juan, and I don't know how I didn't catch that she used the word predatory. So folks, if you go see what she says, you know, she's just saying like, "This is why I don't support third party or ABCDE," and then she goes, "But people want honesty, they want authenticity, and they don't want a predatory campaign." And that's why I said later I'm going to talk about that. The idea that she even used that word
It's hysterical.
against that's not just about you and Bush, that's against all of us. The reason she could even say that, then she was like, ran in a third party. No, the Working Families Party is not a third party. It's a different line. Like people don't even get that. But when she said that, all I thought is right, Hillary Clinton super predator. Just
Yeah,
the word itself.
yeah.
That's what
Oh,
really made
wow.
me angry. You know, like now
Yeah,
you're calling us predators in
yeah.
that political sense. I
Wow.
mean, I've been slowly a little bit more disappointed. I've been slowly seeing like how she has been enveloped to be like that new leadership. She's going to support Harris. And then I look at someone like Rashida Tlaib or what the Green Party is doing or what PSL is doing, or even Dr. Stein and Molina, which is telling the truth. So that kind of attack really, really infuriated me. Like I'm still kind of hot in my body. And that was like 12 hours ago when I watched it. But
Yeah, I think it really, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and she got totally roasted on social media when she put that out. There were just so many things about it that were so kind of self-important and haughty
Yeah,
and predatory, really. Um, yeah,
I
and saying, "You guys go away," and you just come out to run for president every 4 years, like you were saying earlier. We run for president because you make the rules, and that's what we have to do if we're gonna run at any level. So thanks a lot, that's you. And it's the press that goes away. We don't go away. We're doing that work. So she's
and not just
basically
elect
a
in our
liar, and
community.
where has she been? Yeah, she's been getting elected, but what is she doing? They couldn't stand up on Medicare for all. They did not stand up for the striking, railroad workers and basically destroyed their right to strike, forced a really dangerous contract onto them that they had already rejected, laying the groundwork for the crash of the railroad in East Palestine, which was so devastating to the people there. That all goes back to their refusal to allow those striking workers to strike for better working conditions. They gave up the goat on the public option and on bulk purchasing, just, on one thing after another. They've been all hype. Where are they? You know, where are they on the Green New Deal? Haven't said a word about that in years. So, she's kind of patting herself on the back because she gets reelected. But then what does she do? We call her AOC Pelosi because she's kind of in line for a power track right now.
That's
And
exactly what she is, because
yeah,
they've sidelined the squad in general, right? Like,
yeah.
but so how many ballots is the Green Party on at this moment? Well,
We
it'll
are
be the
on
last. How
we're
many?
on There are only 3 states that were not on the ballot.
So we're on 47 ballots.
Yes, and let me tell you how.
That's the
For
best. That's double. That's the
Well,
best ever.
39 of them, we actually have a line, and on an additional 8, we have, a official write-in campaign so that they will count the write-ins. If you don't get go through the motions, and the steps, then it won't help to do a write-in. But we have a write-in in 8 states, and we have the actual ballot line in 39. So
Let me show
altogether.
people the map. I printed it out today.
Oh, that's really great.
Yeah, because you can go to gp.org and just straight print it out. So that's a lot of green. We've never seen that much green in general. And then the little chart there for the write-ins and stuff.
So let
So
me ask, was that printed out from the, Green Party website or from our campaign website?
I think the Green Party, and it was
Yeah.
updated on September 15th.
Oh, interesting, because the one on our
That's
website actually has a
updated.
lot more. Our
Yeah,
website
on your
has a lot
specific
more.
site. Yeah, I
Yes.
took that
Yeah.
from the green site. So it's not,
So
it's
they may not be showing where we have a legal write-in, campaign
yeah,
going on.
okay.
So it's actually way more colored in than that. And the 3 states where we don't have ballot access are low population states, in particular Oklahoma and I think it's South Dakota, very low population. So it's basically 95% of voters can actually vote to end genocide, end war, advance a workers' agenda, and end the climate emergency.
Well, look,
95%.
I know we all know at this point the policies and the embracement of a third party, young people, the duopoly. For you, being part of the party and running before, what needs to happen for the Green Party to maybe become a little bit more modernized? Maybe have a spokesperson, maybe
Um,
uplift the candidates that are out there. Like,
yeah.
what I have my ideas on what are your ideas?
You know, I think we need resources to do the, ABCs of political organizing.
Yeah.
And, like right now, for example, we have a perfect storm for political change right now in this election even. 1 out of every 3 eligible voters did not vote in 2020 for president because they don't buy who's being rammed down our throats. Didn't buy it in 2020, don't buy it now. So and the non-voter tends to be lower income, of color, and younger. That's exactly who our agenda speaks to. If we are well organized, if we are doing, the ABCs of campaigning, and that means tabling, flyering, door knocking, and phone banking. It's not rocket science how you do grassroots outreach for a people-powered campaign. And then there's fundraising along with that. And you need organizers to help support people to do this. So we have better resources than we've had. We have the potential to hire more organizers, I hope. Depends kind of how the fundraising goes over the next week or two. We've been getting a lot of support now as we're coming up in the polls and getting more visibility. We're getting a whole lot more contributions so that we can start hiring more organizers and really turning the crank. So that's step one, as far as I'm concerned. And then step two is once we've gotten as far as we can go on election day. And I think all bets are off on how far that could be because people are in a total state of crisis now, whatever you look at. Our healthcare, our housing, 50% of all renters are within a paycheck or two of being evicted. People are up to their eyeballs in student debt and medical debt and, credit card debt and have lousy jobs that don't pay living wages. It's like 25 million Americans, who have jobs and are below the poverty level. So it's not working in a really desperate way. And people are really at their wits' end. And that's not even to mention the wars that are impoverishing us, where we are heading towards a nuclear catastrophe right now in both the Middle East and Ukraine, Russia, and then potentially China, in this military, which is sucking half of our congressional budget into this endless war machine that makes the world more insecure, more dangerous, more chaotic, setting the world on fire. This is where our dollars are going. Half of our congressional dollars are going there while the American people are in utter crisis. So when you get out there and you talk to people about it, and this is why we're seeing so much resonance, I think. It's not just that people like Angela Rye and AOC are very self-important and really off-putting and kind of obnoxious. It's not only that, it's also that people are really resonating with a real people-powered agenda with solutions that would actually work right now if only we had actual public servants instead of servants of Wall Street and the war machine. So it's a really electric time right now. And I think all bets are off on how far we can go. And in my view, a win is doing the best that we can do with the hand that we're dealt. And we won't know what that is until the end of the day. And so I'm encouraging everybody who wants to end the genocide, who wants a $25 living wage for a minimum wage, who wants rent control across the country, who wants a tenant bill of rights so you can't be evicted, so that your landlord can remodel, raise the rent, and gentrify. Everybody who wants Medicare for all, basically healthcare, which is delivered for free at the point of delivery, and it's paid for through a very progressive tax base, which would drastically cut the overall costs through a Medicare for all system, saves us a huge amount of money, but it especially saves low and middle income people a huge amount of money. We could have all that. Yeah.
Jill, a point of clarification, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Indiana, and Nevada, because the Supreme Court.
That's right. Yes, it is those four.
And there's someone from the party that was gay. So those are the 4 states, but the one in Nevada, is the Supreme Court kept you out of that. So
that's right. Yes. Yeah. And Oklahoma, we missed Oklahoma because the Democrats, mainly the treasurer, was hanging on to our matching funds. They've never done this before. They refused to give us the matching funds, the public funding that we needed in order to pay for Oklahoma. And they refused to give it to us. They delayed that for about 2 months until all of the ballot drives were over. That's why we missed ballot access in most of those states.
Where's your stand then on immigration? Where you stand?
Okay. So our rule of thumb on immigration is that the most powerful thing we can do to fix the immigration crisis is to stop causing it in the first place through regime change operations by destabilizing other countries, by the war on drugs, which gives a lot of power and resources to the drug cartels, which create a lot of violence that drive people, running to this country to try to escape the violence of the drug cartels, through dealing with climate change, which we are not dealing with. We just keep extracting more and more fossil fuels, putting farmers out of business, creating utter catastrophe, and forcing people to basically come running. Also through economic colonialism, we, and which goes hand in hand with regime change, we overturned Haiti's government, many times, but twice under Aristide. So we basically couped Aristide and then went in and reversed, for example, Haiti's minimum wage, which they had doubled to all of 60 cents. And then Hillary Clinton, after Aristide was out of the way, went back in and reversed that referendum, driving the minimum wage back down to 30 cents. This is why people are in utter abject poverty, misery. Haiti is, just dealing with the fallout from centuries of interference and economic, devastating colonialism. So that's number one for how to deal with the migrant crisis, by stopping the offending policies that are destabilizing countries and
Yeah.
forcing people to
And
flee.
forcing people to migrate, to live.
Exactly. To come running for their lives. That's number one. And some of that can happen on day one by legalizing marijuana, for example, on day one, taking it off the list of registered drugs, which are, limited, and then moving towards a holistic policy for all drugs, to treat all drugs as public health issues, not as criminal issues. So that way you move towards decriminalization and then legalization, and you provide other means of both treating and avoiding substance use and addiction. So that's a whole public health program, but you can begin right now by legalizing marijuana and pulling the rug out from under many of these violent drug cartels. That can happen on day one. The other thing that can happen, which is part of our policy for immigration, is to forget the wall. The wall kills people. It costs a lot of money. It also kills wildlife, and it destroys ecosystems. And it doesn't do any of the things that are claimed. It doesn't keep drugs out. Drugs are coming in through legal portals of entry, and who's bringing them?
Right.
Native-born Americans, not immigrants. So all that is just part of the immigrant bashing that has always been the Republican thing, but now the Democrats are embracing that too, and really adopted kind of the Trump policies on migration. So we're saying, instead of spending billions of dollars on this wall, which just kills people, doesn't solve any of the problems of the migration crisis, instead spend those dollars on having migration lawyers and the support systems in civil society, so that people get promptly put through background checks and they get their papers right away. So they come in and they can go to work, because if migrants are allowed to work, they are worth their weight in gold. And this is a resource that communities will be competing for, because migrants don't just pay their own way, they also pay taxes, a lot of taxes, and
And they
contribute
bring
to
communities back to life.
prosperity.
That's what's been happening in Springfield, Ohio. Like living in upstate New York, where you see so much shuttering of manufacturing in the 80s, and then a plethora of prisons, right? But now, because mass incarceration in New York has fallen, there's still small communities are like, please don't close our prison, because if you do, we won't have jobs. As opposed to seeing, and then going to like somewhere like Springfield, Ohio, the only reason your city is alive and thriving right now is because of the Haitian people that you wanted to come there. And I also find it like a travesty that the president or vice president hasn't said something hard on it. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
people are going to lose their lives. And you have nothing to say about that, as well as right now the elected leaders. So, and I also, folks, understand too, reparations 100%, cancel student loan debt, medical debt, right? Affordable housing. And, I think something that I was realizing, now that I'm a little bit older and have to make the budget for the family, I was like, are we paying for double for everything? Like, I saw it, but then I saw it. And I have to say, it's the
Mhm,
first time where I'm like, oh shit. Like, we
mm,
are two paychecks away.
mhm.
Luckily, some of us have communities, and we will be supported, and we figure these things out. But there's no reason any one of us should go to any supermarket and an avocado is $6, and that's in upstate New York. What's going on in New York City and in Cali and all that. But what's a message that for people who are watching you now, maybe being introduced for the first time? We understand pretty much all what the Green Party platform is, what everybody says they want, and that's why I was like, we're gonna have to monetize the Green Party. We have to do more voter education in the future.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
what do you want to tell young people in general, but your message to all these incredibly brave college students who are now returning and want to build their encampments and are being criminalized, they're
Yeah,
being expelled.
yeah,
And I think it's important to realize, fam, that all through academia right now, this entire summer was spent by the leaders of these universities where people are going into $100,000 of debt. They rewrote all the rules on
right,
protests. And we haven't seen that, like, I maybe since the Vietnam War, but the Vietnam War was more, I think, a unified, and we didn't have social media, so it's not as easy to infiltrate that. But what would your message be to those students who are going hard, but a lot of them are now like, if I go to this protest, I'm going to get kicked out?
right, right. Yeah, you know, I have so much respect for the students who have been standing up and leading the charge, and I've been talking to students at different campuses and, just really trying to support them as they struggle with this question. How can we struggle? And it's not only being kicked out, it's also getting your head bashed in because the cops are vicious, brutal, trained by the Israeli Defense Forces for the most part in cop cities, which are springing up
Mm,
under democratic city governments all over the country.
yes.
So fascism is here. And it's not just students. Students are getting their heads bashed in simply for like doing a die-in. I mean, it's unbelievable the kind of brutality that's going on now. And the other thing, Rosa, this is amazing. There was a expose just done on this last week by Li Fang, who used to work for The Intercept. Now he's independent. He has his own Substack. Li Fang is his name. He's an investigative journalist. And he looked into this question. So where are all these identical rules coming from? How did it happen that all these campuses have kind of adopted the same really
Same.
horrific regressive policies? Well, guess what? The money is actually coming from the Israeli government, from the Knesset, going through to nonprofits who are basically in violation of FARA. They're in violation of the Foreign Agent Registration Act. They should be in jail for 15 years. This is what, like the Uhuru 3, the African
It's kind
Socialist
of like APAC,
Platform.
right?
Well, it's like APAC, but it's slightly different. APAC is another version of this. APAC should also be taken to court. In fact, this is also part of our day one agenda, is that we will instruct the Department of Justice to sue APAC for violation of the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Because
Mm,
APAC is another example of this, that where people are basically being paid to act on behalf of the state of Israel and are interfering with our elections and are also manipulating legislation. They're really interfering with our government on behalf of another government. And yes, there are lots of Jews in this country, but that's not the state of Israel. And that is not that doesn't give you a license to silence young people or to deem anti-genocide activity as anti-Semitic and illegal. Which is, they're so distorting what anti-Semitism is. They're making Israel you can't criticize Israel. It's just outrageous. Why can we criticize every other country and our own, but we can't criticize Israel? It's just ridiculous. But it turns out there is method to this madness. And that method has to do with dollars coming from the Knesset to buy the policies being pushed by a whole slew of nonprofits. And that's separate from AIPAC. I'm not sure how AIPAC gets its money. I don't know about that. But AIPAC is acting in a concerted way to benefit another country and is interfering in our elections. We know that Israel has had a much heavier hand in our elections than Russia ever has, if you look at the paper trail around it. So, these Israeli lobbying groups are getting away with murder and that's what's transforming all these rules on our campuses. That's what's driving the hearings on Capitol Hill, where they dragged in the presidents of universities, of these, elite universities, because they're the trendsetters, and basically intimidated them and excoriated them for allowing anti-genocide activity to take place on their campuses. And there's a bill pending called the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act that will hold universities accountable for violating like Title V or Title VI, something like that. But you can't.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that you won't be able to get federal dollars if you allow criticism of the state of Israel on your campus. That hasn't passed in the Senate yet, but it has passed in the House, and it's kind of a model. Or you have these 27 BDS bills, anti-BDS bills, that prohibit boycott, divestment.
You can't even say the words.
Yes, exactly. That too was a campaign that was pushed by these nonprofits who were being sponsored by the state of Israel. So that's not okay. In some ways, it's even more explicitly illegal than AIPAC. AIPAC, there's a little more gray zone, but these other nonprofits that are accepting money to lobby, money from the Knesset, from the Israeli parliament, in order to push policies that advantage Israel, you can't do that without being a foreign agent, a registered foreign agent. So this is extremely explosive, this expose that Li Fang just did.
Yeah, no, thank you. I will read it later. Also, what I found interesting about those hearings was that it was only women. The women it was 3 women presidents, the patriarchy. So,
amazing.
One last thing that I wanted to tell folks is I think the reason there's such a clamping down of whether you're a young person in high school or college or working or whatever, and you're coming together, is that this is probably the first time we've seen such an incredible intersectionality of students. So it's African American and Latinos, it's South Asian, it's Jewish Voices for Peace, all standing up for that. And that's what's going to scare them the most, that because what they're also trying to do, they try to make deals with historically black colleges and universities, right? So that's who they're targeting right now. They're going to the Howards and that, let us come so we can talk about anti-Semitism and we can have a connection, particularly with Black students. But I know you're on the run, just so I'll give you the last couple words. Foremost, and thank you so much for being here. I'm excited more every day of the campaign, because I know it's going to go beyond January 6th and what that looks like. You're just some closing thoughts or message.
I think, this is what our team has been laying the groundwork for, and more power to you, Rosa, in the groundwork that you laid, Cynthia as well, that we've been paving the way for this day. We've been ahead of the curve as Greens on the climate crisis, on reparations, on Medicare for all. We've introduced most of these concepts, on free public higher education. We've been ahead of the curve. And, on cutting the military budget 50% and putting those dollars into real security here at home. We've been ahead of the curve, and the curve has caught up to us. And like all of a sudden, people are waking up to what we've been talking about here for quite some time. And it's just, to me, it's just so exciting to see what's happening. And there's no going back. There's no going back, because we don't have a future on the trajectory that we're on. We're headed for, just the economic meltdown, the mass evictions, which are already happening. Homelessness is at an unprecedented rate. Everything is at an unprecedented rate right now. People can't get out of student debt. Jobs do not support a
Living.
family, and we have to change. And we've been laying out this crisis for a long time, and it turns out we're right. We're right. And the world can see that now. At the same time that they've had it with Democrats and Republicans, the honeymoon is over for Kamala. They kind of hid her behind a curtain for long enough. And it's come out now, that she's the, she wants to have the most lethal fighting force ever. She wants to frack till the cows come home. And she wants to, bar the migrants, the immigrants at the border, because they're dangerous. So close down that border. And prides herself on having the most right-wing policies, especially on immigration, and prides herself on the endorsements from Dick Cheney and a whole slew of Republicans. So that's what we've got. And that's kind of what we've been warning about for a long time. So it's really a great time to be standing up, and just really excited to have you, out there leading the charge. And thank you for this interview and helping to get the word out and mobilizing your community. And again, I want to encourage people, go to JillStein2024.com and sign up. If you can make a donation, throw something into the hat, because we're a grassroots campaign. We depend on us everyday people, so that it's not corporations and super PACs and dark money, that's kind of buying their way in here. We don't accept that. And above all, we need to be organized. We could actually win this election if we got the word out. If each of us told 10 people who told 10 people, and everybody's registering at the website, so that we can all be managed with supportive staff to help us go through the motions, the tabling, the flyering, the door knocking, and the phone banking. There's a little bit of method to that, but not very much. It's pretty common sense and simple. We got resources, flyers and so on, call lists, scripts, call scripts, etc. If we just turn the crank, this is how grassroots movements win. And it would sure benefit a whole lot of people. 2 million people in Gaza are in the target hairs, and those target hairs are expanding now massively, but 2 million people whose lives are really on the line. And every vote that is cast against genocide is a shot across the bow of the empire to tell them, we are here, we're not going away, we are getting organized, and your days are numbered. We're going to end genocide in Gaza, and we're going to end genocide as a tactic of the military-industrial complex, and this endless war and economic and military domination. It's over. We need a new paradigm. We need a multipolar world rather than a monopolar world, where we're working in accordance with international law and human rights. It's not impossible to do this, but if we don't do this, we do not have a future for ourselves or our kids, because the nukes are coming back in a very big way, and they could go flying in the blink of an eye, not to mention the climate crisis and all the rest. So, oligarchy has proven itself incapable of serving our interests. So it's time to essentially overthrow it. And together we are unstoppable. In the words of Alice Walker, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. We do have the power. This is all about having the courage of our convictions and standing up and making it happen together. And, together we are an absolutely unstoppable force. So thank you so very much, Rosa, for
Of course. Well,
And
thank
right.
you to you, your team, Butch. I feel I might see you at some campaign stops. I really encourage people,
So,
like, read the platforms. And, the one thing about organizing, when you do it for a while, you don't know when it's gonna hit, and then
yes,
it hits,
yes,
and here we are. And
yes,
of course, please stay safe. There's a lot of folks out there, but I think you are. And we will see you soon. And we're 6 weeks away. So thank you for
amazing.
your time.
Thank
And
you.
give your whole team and Butch my love, and I'll see you all out there somewhere soon.
Will do. All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Rosa.
you.
All
All
best.
right.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Besos.